I will check.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There are. Oh, I thought there are people wanted to get in, but actually it just showed yourself and your presentation as a different person, but it's not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's screen sharing, I guess.
Yeah. We can record it anyway.
Mm-hmm. Can you disable the AI transcription? That would be cool.
Disable?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no transcription is set up.
Okay.
Actually, as far as I checked.
It says that there will be, at least when I click to the top right on this.
Really?
Gemini is creating notes. Blah.
Well, let me check.
Yeah.
Stop take notes with Gemini.
Mm-hmm.
What?
We must not give them as a present to the big companies.
I actually removed now the tick.
Okay, cool.
Not sure whether it went through. One guest is joining.
Mm-hmm.
Hello.
Hello.
Other guest is joining as well.
Still see 3 persons. Ah, no.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi. Welcome.
Hello.
Hi. Okay.
Great. So, how 2 minutes wait in order for someone else to join? Okay.
Yeah, we can wait a couple of minutes. Just for new joiners, we had some technical issues, of course, with the YouTube stream, but no worries. Once because you are here already, and twice because like we are going to record this anyway, and we can stream it later as well. And also, I'm still trying to stream, so maybe it will succeed. So let me just double check once more, and we can then. I don't see more people yet in the queue. Let me double check. Okay. No, it doesn't allow me, actually. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, hello. I'm admitting the guests in the meantime, so if I'm focusing somewhere else, it is the place. Anyway, so recording is in progress. That's our safety net here. We are going to put it on YouTube anyway later on, so others can check.
All right, 2 minutes.
Yeah, maybe start at 5.
All right. Hi, Christopher.
Hi. From Colorado. I love Colorado, actually.
Skiing in the winter, I guess.
I was there for mainly for Export DDD conferences, and it was always so hot. No matter they sometimes moved it, to spring, to be and to the other half of the year, but still, it was always warm when I was there. Okay, I'm just checking again whether anyone wants to join, but I will see in the meantime. So anyway.
So Werner, where are you from? Are you from Germany? That sounds very German, the name, like me. I'm also from Germany.
Indeed.
So,
I'm from Switzerland. My ancestor kind of migrated around Europe. But I grew up in Switzerland, and Miller is a very German name.
Yeah, this is like Lake Constance. I guess you know that one.
Oh, I can almost throw a stone.
Yes.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, I did my morning paddling trips on this shore, and it was really nice when the sun was rising.
Oh, nice.
Well, I live nearby Bern, where there's no lake, but there's the river where you can just toss a boat in and let it flow for a few hours.
Yeah.
I think people paddle, but that's an advanced thing.
Yeah, I think 3 years ago or something, my sister and my girlfriend gave me a SUP, like stand-up paddle boards. And it never crossed my mind that this lake is very close and you could really use such a thing. And then I started and I never stopped.
Oh, one person wants to come in. He is coming, hopefully.
Right.
And hi, Attila.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. So I think we can start actually, and afterwards we will. I'm trying to admit people, trying to notice if someone wants to come in, and I swear I'm going to admit them. So welcome everyone, and thanks for joining, and especially thanks Alex for offering this session. I'm very curious about that, especially that I'm also in, well, more than 20 years in the fields, but from a very different angle than yours. So I am very curious about you, what you have for us here today. So the stage is yours, and I'm going to admit more guests in the meantime.
Great. Cool. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'll be sharing my thoughts on software development after 21 years being in the field as a software developer. This talk came by because my boss dropped in and said, basically, Alex, we have a talk at the university. And I asked him about what, and he said, does not matter. You can talk about anything. So I sat down and thought a bit and thought, what would I have liked to know after basically 10 years in the field when I started off in the field of software development. This was the starting point of this talk, which has been polished for 10 years now and always updated with basically the things that I find mentioning. Let's start off. So who am I? The traveler. I'm Alex Turo. I was born in Hamburg in 1975. I studied economics and computer science and graduated in 2005. If you want to connect, I would be very happy. You will find me on Alex Turo on LinkedIn. And also, this, by the way, is a picture of myself before I started to put all the pictures on the internet. I was very skeptical about what might be happening on the internet with all those photos, but with the job I'm doing right now, it's simply not possible to believe anymore. So you see my face, it is this one. This is my old face, I would say. My homepage can be found on moderndev.de, and on Mastodon, I'll be basically, I'm putting things up there. When I read some interesting stuff, you can follow my journey through software development there on Mastodon. I held different positions. I used to be a software developer all the way through since 2005. And when I tried to think about what I really did for customers and colleagues on top of software development, I was always a supporter, a consultant, a technical trainer quite early. It started even, I think, in the first year of my job with Eclipse. We had something with the Eclipse Foundation running, and we offered training courses about Eclipse RCP. And then after 20 years, or even back then 10 years, I tried to see what I did. Basically, I did mentoring after all those years. I did after work talks, stuff like this, what we're doing right here and now. So meeting after work and watch interesting stuff. Hopefully this is interesting to you. We'll learn afterwards. Code camps was something where colleagues presented what they did on the projects. I used to be a lecturer at the university, and this talk was something that I basically lectured about there. And I became a speaker, I think 4 years ago, also with this talk. And now I pivoted from software development, for coding, towards software development culture. And what that means, you will basically learn in this talk. And at the end of this presentation, I'll talk a few words about software development culture in our crazy times with AI and software development, I guess. My main areas of interest in business was always clean code, refactoring, technical depth, and mentoring. And in private, I read many books, lots about technological disruption and even current affairs. And that was even a longer journey, 29 years. And we'll be heading off for the business side of the things. So characteristics, what is software development? A young and dynamic area of expertise. Back in 2015, when Dan North went on stage, I think at the first day of CraftConf in Budapest, in fact. By the way, you have a really cool conference there in Budapest with CraftConf.
Are you coming?
Sorry?
Are you coming this year?
No, I won't be coming. I was there last year with this talk.
Cool.
And this time I won't be there, but I will be at DDD in Antwerp this year. So basically, Dan North said, how many of your parents have been working in IT? And like of the 1,000 developers, like 20 or 40 hands went up. And then he said, could it be that this is new and that we are making things up as we head towards the future? If you look a bit further back in time, 1985, this book was even written 10 years earlier, but there's a really cool and updated, back then in 1985, essay in the book, The Mythical Man Month, and that essay is called No Silver Bullet. In this, Frederick Brooks, who's of course one of the greats in our business, basically contrasted complexity with simple complicatedness there. According to him, software developers are faced with essential complexity. Those are the elements needed in order to describe a given problem abstractly. A pro would say that's the domain abstraction. And then on top, everything on top is accidental complexity. And those are the additional elements introduced by the concrete implementation, the technical solution. So if you pick the wrong technology for this thing that you basically did a domain abstraction about, then you have a big accident. If you pick the right technology, then you have a smaller accident, but you have an accident nonetheless. First of all, when I talked to the students back then, I found this, I think in 2013 or 14 by Simon Wardley, an anecdote about how he perceives our business. He says, in the beginning, you're in the I know nothing phase. You're basically the beginner. Then you become a hazard because you think you're an expert, but you're not yet an expert. And then when you became an expert, you are back in the I know nothing phase. Why? Because basically how much you think you know explodes after a while in the business. And when your nose gets bloodied, you basically learn, oh, my knowledge is not that big. And the other curves are interesting. How much more you actually know is down here, and how much more is out there on the internet with all the science going on, with all the stuff that companies are providing you with on the internet, whatever you name it. This is escaping towards wherever, and you are just a normal human being. Of course, you cannot put everything inside there, but the realization that you're in the I know nothing phase is crucial for an expert. He knows that. In real life, what is experience? Because of course, experience is the thing that you basically can sell on the market. In real life, it looks like this. Be prepared for this. Success is the ability to go from one failure to another with no loss of enthusiasm, as said by Winston Churchill. And back then, us Germans did strange things in Europe, and I'm very glad that he did not lose his enthusiasm back then. Experience is what you get when you didn't get what you wanted. And experience is often the most valuable thing you have to offer, as said by Randy Pausch. Randy Pausch was a professor at Carnegie Mellon, and I think back in, 2006, our boss sent an email in the evening, you have to really watch this talk by him, Really Achieving Your Childhood Dreams. Basically in that, he was talking about his life, what he wants to share with people, because on the first thing he did, he put on a slide with liver scans of his liver, and he said, I have 3 months to go. Here's what I want to share with you because I might be leaving soon. He lived 2 more years, but I can really say, watch that talk. It's massively inspiring. By the way, I will show you later on my homepage, all the links of this presentation are on the website, and you can find them there and watch all the stuff or read about it. There is only one thing more painful than learning from experience, and that is not learning from experience. As said by Lawrence J. Peter, he wrote a marvelous book in the 60s called The Peter Principle. And that he basically states, if a hierarchy is big enough, you are promoted until you're incompetent, because you did not say no the last time before you came to incompetence. And this book reads like a scientific study, but he made all that stuff up. Basically, he said, yeah, it reads like a scientific study. And basically, if you do not know that this is not a scientific field called hierarchiography, you're basically like, If you know that he made this up in order to make his point about this dangerous dynamic, then you read this book completely different. Really interesting read. And by the way, even back then, he said, if we continue on doing the stuff the way we are doing, some bad thing will be happening, some illness where people might drop dead or whatever. Of course, now we know that is called burnout. There was no name back then for that kind of illness. When I went through my my business life, I picked up a book called Pragmatic Thinking and Learning, Refactor Your Wetware by Andy Hunt. Andy Hunt is one of the guys who basically brought the Agile Manifesto into this world. He also wrote the Pragmatic Programmer, I think in 1999, so 9 years earlier. In this book, he is talking about how continuous learning in our job might work for an individual and for an organization. It is key to master your profession. In it, he cites a study from 1984, and this study is called From Novice to Expert. Basically, it's a book where a study is explained in From Novice to Expert, Excellence and Power in Clinical Nursing Practice. So there were the 2 Dreyfus brothers, who basically were one consultant and one philosopher, and they studied how humans learn with these nurses. What they worked out there is the Dreyfus model of skill acquisition. They basically said a person learns in 5 steps, from novice to advanced beginner to competent to proficient and to expert. And what really blew my mind was what they basically showed, or what is in this model. A novice learns by clear rules. First, second, third, and then you check those, and then you basically do your work. An expert has seen so many different things that intuition has been built up in the system. So the novice and the expert were completely different. Second thing, a novice considers everything, and an expert has relevant focus. Basically, a real expert sees different things than a novice. He's overwhelmed. And a novice is a detached observer, whereas an expert is part of the system. If he goes to the coffee machine and takes a break and relaxes a bit, he knows that he's changing the system. He's quite aware of it. So what are the details about this model? That really took my attention back then. Definition of experience is really interesting in this context. Exerting a skill that is changing your thinking. You're a different person after you did that. The hilarious thing is my girlfriend is a nurse, in fact, and I'm a software developer. She has been in that business for, I think, 25 years. I have been in the business for 20 plus years. And when we communicate, we're communicating like this. Because we're different persons, we have been changed by our way of seeing the world and working in this world, because she has a social business and social job, human interactions very close and really important, and I was in a technical business where different things were basically happening, and we have different ways of communicating because we became different persons, because our brains as humans is malleable. It changes when you do something. When you think about the model, and that's important, think per skill and not per person. So the major advanced software developer who never documented anything is a bloody rookie at documenting. Additionally, accept that there are outliers existing. This is not in the model. That is something that I learned over the years. Persons with superpowers. What is a superpower? Back in the days, my boss sat with the main guru programmer at the party, and they were drinking whiskey, and he asked him, hey, how do you do this? I read your code and I'm blown away. I understand half of it, but what do you really do there? He sipped on his whiskey and basically said, yeah, I read the code and then I see color-coded bubbles over my head and arrows between them, exchanging messages. So he has a superpower. I for sure do not have that. Those are persons who are differently wired than us pale humans, or whatever you might call it. Recently, I was at a conference and there was this guy from ID Software, basically the inventor of Doom, and he listened to my story and he said, yeah, that is something like autism, a certain kind of autism. If you have those people, they have superpowers for what we are doing in software development. More details. Novices need context-free rules in order to be able to orient themselves, while experts are able to discern between different contexts and are able to modify their actions accordingly. They are working completely different. What should go wrong if you put a rookie and an expert next to each other, and they are not very well capable of communicating with each other and working together? It's a big gap between them. Verbalization of how exactly and why exactly can become hard or even impossible for experts, because that would resemble a transformation to context-free rules. And exactly because of that, teaching is a real reality check. Can you really explain what you're doing there? And it might even be impossible because all your intuition in there might provide you with a loss of words to really put a 1, 2nd, 3rd checkbox stuff in there in the mix. First spoiler of this presentation. ML and AI approaches are currently trying to emulate expertise, starting from the lowest to the higher levels of expertise in numerous areas of expertise. Of course, also in software development. We'll be talking about that later. What are the implications? Only starting from the 2nd highest level of expertise, a code-producing human is considered to be able to effectively use design patterns. And I learned them as a bloody rookie when I was at the university. It is for the 2 pro-level guys to really work with that. Another spoiler, the same is considered to be true for the fundamental principles of agile software development. For example, continuous feedback and reflection. What does Andy say here? The exciting new principles of software development are targeting developers whose experience level is considered to be proficient or expert, 2nd highest levels. Agile, everyone is using it. Everyone is using Scrum. I thought, if you're considering that especially the first teams using agile methodologies successfully were very experienced, they of course are the gods of agile, whatever you might call them, what can you deduct from that fact? If you put rookies and one only bit advanced person in charge for rookies doing agile. Andy says, if an organization is distrusting intuition and is instead relying on rigid uniform rules, what can you deduct from that fact? You take away the most important tool of the expert, his intuition. If he cannot explain it, you say, we are distrusting that. So you just took away the most powerful tool. This book, this basically is the outline of the whole book. The different colors are the different chapters, and we were only up here. I can tell you there's lots of good stuff in there. if you are doing software development. Something like hardwired bugs in our mind. We'll be coming to that cognitive bias part in a second. But I can assure you, check out this book and read a bit. How you gain experience, how you learn deliberately, how you get in the right mind, how your brain functions, stuff like that. Wetware, hardware, software, and wetware, because there's lots of water in us, of course. So our hardwired bugs, by evolution, put into our systems. A cognitive bias is a systematic pattern of deviation from norm or rationality in judgment. Individuals create their own subjective reality from their perception of the input. Thus, cognitive biases may sometimes lead to perceptual distortion, inaccurate judgment, illogical interpretation, or what is called irrationality. And of course, we coders think, hey, we are so rational. We have, of course, mathematical background and stuff like that. Those things are even in the most hardcore mathematician. And the bad news, there are 300, plus 300 what science have found out. One thing that came across my mind quite often in the software development business is the curse of knowledge. What does that mean? The curse of knowledge means that an expert cannot understand how a non-expert thinks. So not imagining how someone thinks and being a major expert, there's a big gap between those persons. And we have communication problems there. But it is even worse. An expert, as the science shows, the data shows, cannot even imagine how he or she himself or herself thought before they became an expert. That's another level of complexity. You're like cut off from your past, and you're cut off from the non-experts of this world in a certain way. And there are lots and lots of other biases. We'll be looking in the context of AI to 3 others later. If you really want to blow your mind a bit, you must watch this talk. Fantastic biases and where to find them in software development. This is like the Scrum process and which biases really might make it very hard, and some, like in the retro or in the daily stand-up, what kind of biases might lead you astray there. Really interesting talk. Slides here, plus the talk on YouTube. So what is software development in the wild? There are contradictory requirements all the way through. Think like sliders. Where do you put the slider? Towards quality or time and budget? You have to decide. Maintainability or time to market? For a startup, of course, it's time to market. Otherwise, you're basically gone. But where do you put it if you're a business who wants to sell this software for 10 or 15 or 20 years? Better towards maintainability. Concentration and focus in a very dynamic field. We have all these things that basically eat at our cognition, email, Slack, whatever. And of course, even the sheer dynamic characteristics of software development. Really interesting post, by the way. I'll post it later on my homepage on this talk page. We are our own worst enemies, written by a German CTO, because he says there's essential dynamic things, essential speed and accidental speed. We are basically not only working with the essential things that speed up our business, by accident, we are also adding to all that speed. Fear of missing out, whatever. Really interesting post. I'll put it on the page. And here I decided to stop because I could write a whole presentation about those sliders, I guess. In fact, we have a model of reality and reality, another slider. Where do you put it? That's a tough question. The abstraction, of course, of the domain. So even in 1772, they knew better is the enemy of good. We have to find out in 2026 what is good enough. Let's see. Factors of influence in software development. In the wild, we have an environment influenced by a multitude of factors. Those are external from you as a human being and internal. Color coding is important. Budget, project conditions, priorities. Luckily, someone else is working on those. But you should know at least enough about those. Those are the external factors. The internal factors are imagination and stressors. If you think about software development, you need to really have a nice working imagination, because you are doing this model of the reality towards the machine. And stressors, they eat at your imagination. If you basically stand up at 5 o'clock and the dog lies in front of your bed, and by accident you step on it and everyone is awake, and then you drop the coffee, and then someone does not say good morning in the office and stuff like that, those are all stressors that will be eating at your imagination. And as Andy had in his book, you have a way to get in the right mind, and for that you need to manage your stressors. If you think, hey, come on, Alex, imagination, come on. This is a classic. Normally I go through each step, but today I'll be doing a bit of a reduced, because we say like 1 hour plus a bit, and then off. I can talk about all this stuff like for hours. And in fact, that is the part of the software development culture. It is much more intricate than writing code. So I guess you have at some point seen this. This is communication and imagination at work. If you say, okay, check, Alex, imagination. This is the real irony. The best description of software development was on a t-shirt, and it is this. Programmer, we do precision guesswork based on unreliable data provided by those of questionable knowledge. And we'll be picking this one apart, this t-shirt. I do not have it. I've just seen it on the internet, and I would really like to have that one. So, coder precision. As of today, computer programming requires unsparing precision. Most humans, and a spoiler, also coders, you're also humans, are much less precise than the machine requires. Current developments in the areas of ML and AI could soften this fact. You're talking to the machine, of course. Unclear, will there be less rigid precision necessary in the future? Let's see. Now this machine is really creating code very quickly, and now we have a new bottleneck, reading all that stuff. Food for thought. Will there instead be even more demand for communication skills, teamwork, and creativity? This is something that I found very notable. The main reason we tend to focus on the technical rather than the human side of the work is not because it's more crucial, but because it's easier to do. This is from a book out of the 80s. And his example back then was swapping out the hard drive is positively easier than finding out why your colleague is in such a strange mood. But it's more crucial to work as a team, very well attuned, and finding out and caring about the other persons with which you are doing this complex task, not swapping out the hard drive. That's the easy thing. Guesswork, second part. A crucial part of software development process is initial and ongoing requirements gathering. A spoiler, that is the interpretation of imprecise data by imprecise humans. And if estimation is guessing, then requirements are rumors. I found this hilarious back then. But now, after all those years, I realized this is a play with the metaphors. If you talk to your boss about estimation and requirements, it sounds like really clear-cut mathematical stuff, more or less. If you talk about guessing and rumors, you really become way more careful about what you're talking about. A change in metaphor might do powerful things. An estimate is a lie to serve the delusion that software development is deterministic. We have humans here in this mix. We have machines who are massively complex. It is not deterministic. There are different things happening that here, if you put A in, B will be coming out. It is a complex system. Estimating software development is like estimating a walk through a minefield. It's either a short time or a long time, depending. And nowadays, I tend to add here, we'll be looking at AI for quite a while, and I'm not really sure if it blows up, whether it's better that in the short term it's blowing up because of all the money that is going into that field. If it blows up later, we might have spent a lot of money for questionable results. Unreliable data. In many cases, even classic logic is falling by the wayside. And this is sheer gold. It's a bit longish, but it is Martin Fowler, also Agile Manifesto guy. Even when different applications access the same data, there is considerable conceptual dissonance between them. Business rules are given to you as they stand, and if you want to change them, you need 67 meetings and 3 vice presidents retiring. They are usually a haphazard array of strange conditions that interact in surprising ways. Their insanity derives from a good reason. Each one is a case where salesmen could close a particular deal by offering some special one-off condition. Do this 1,000 times and you have the complex business illogic that lies in the heart of many enterprise applications. What should go wrong if you take a human being who thinks that he's more or less logical and you face him with illogical things in the code? Massive tension there. More wrong metaphors. Again, Andy Hunt. Metaphors for software development. It's not a sprint. It's not a marathon either. Actually, it's an obstacle course. And recently, when I held this talk in Zurich, after the talk, some guy approached me and he said, Alex, on Monday, I'll be renaming our sprint to obstacle course. And I really like that. And this is a visualization. A sprint. You start. You have feature 1. You have a meeting. You have a bug. You have feature. No, it's a bug. You have planning. You have feature. You have merge conflict. You have a meeting. And then scope creep. This is an obstacle course. Unreliable data part 2. Business logic always has a history. We are humans and we have history, and it is therefore inseparably intertwined with the culture. We are humans. We create cultures that produced it. Every organizational culture is strong. Not all are cultivated, shared, or even openly acknowledged. It gets worse from left to right. Not cultivated, not even shared, or even hidden. So if you're a waterfall company and put little tiny stickers with the sprint names and stuff and Scrum words on it, then you have another problem. According to theory of Conway's law, the history and sociology of a software-producing organization is always shaping its software development process. What does that mean? Any organization that designs a system defined broadly will produce a design whose structure is a copy of the organization's communication structure. If you simply have no clue how the other guy is named, what kind of people are there, what kind of branches in your company, and you never communicate with each other, you're building silos. Questionable knowledge. Internal and external factors are influencing every phase of a software development process. This is pure gold. Thinking code looks ridiculous is the best sign I'm misunderstanding something fundamental about the pressures that produce that code. Everyone knows this. You are sitting at your machine, before AI, of course, and you're swearing at the code. And then you look at the Git log and you say, oh, it was me. 2019. Oh, it was this project. And because of the sheer intensity of the emotions that went through your system, you remember those pressures. Bad news, if you leave the company, no one has any clue whether you're a bad person or whether this project was really that tough. And recently I thought, if data protection wouldn't prevent it, you should basically commit from a scale from 1 to 9, your stress level while committing. 1 is completely relaxed, 9 is maximum stress. And in fact, this might really give you a hint how you should read the code that you're just reading. Because that person might have left, but you have some scale on which the pressure level was. For that, of course, you need a non-broken culture in your company, software development culture. Classic education and or training may not be the solution. That was a bit of an epiphany for me because I studied really hard and I had good grades and stuff. What does this guy say? Education misled me to assume that knowledge is the key to being a good developer. It took me 20 years, that's an accident, and not an accident, but by sheer coincidence, 20 years to realize that good habits are the thing. Humans run on habits. If you have bad habits, if you never write any test and never document anything, that is a bad habit. You might be waking up in a hell that might lead to much more pressures in the future. We humans are victims of a fallacy. We think we are rational beings with some emotions, but in fact, we are emotional creatures with some rationality. And I tend to say, okay, we studied persons, or I'm in fact a studied person, we tend even more to think that we are rational creatures. Just go to the guy who's working on your trees outside in the garden and start a discussion whether we humans are emotional creatures or rational creatures. And he will tell you different things that you as a studied person might think. An excursion, a rant about normal humans. Once I was really stressed and I was really swearing at the code and the system that I was reading very hard, and this came through my mind. You might know this. This is not by me. Anything that is in the world when you're born is normal and ordinary, and is just a natural part of the way the world works. Anything that's invented between when you're 15 and 35 is new and exciting and, of course, revolutionary, and you can probably get a career in it. Anything invented after you're 35, and I'm 51, is against the natural order of things. This, of course, is Douglas Adams. So where's the ranting part? Coding humans. I adapted this when I was swearing hard. Almost all code that existed in the world when you were born is completely boring. We need to reinvent the wheel. Anything that will be written up until her age of 20 is not really that exciting. And with some luck, someone else will, definitely not yourself, may build his or her career on it. All code that will be produced later at last defines the natural order of things, because I, of course, wrote that code correctly, and will lead to a better civilization that we do not yet know. Up until after 3 to 5 and not 10 years or something, you realize that the existing order was quite all right, because select was not broken. You shouldn't re-implement SQL. So, rant mode off. What did I see? What kind of civilizations in my 20 years? The observed civilization. SOA, when I started my job based on web services, if I would have known the history of software development a bit more better, I would realize, that's platform-independent CORBA from the 80s, possibly. Then came polyglot programming. No one could ever explain to me why a coder should pick the most weird language, leave the company, and you have a big black hole in your code base. JavaScript everywhere. If a software development language was written in 3 weeks with a max level of stress of 9, it shouldn't be everywhere on this planet, I guess. Cloud based on Docker. Nothing becomes really better if you take your SOA implementation, because that's like an asset. No, it is not. It is a liability after a while. And you wrap it in Docker, and then you put it on some other machine. That might add to the complexity and might provide you with problematic things, because the cognition is, of course, a bottleneck and not the technical solution, writing code. Not only microservices. That, if you think it through, is polyglot SOA. So we might be going in circles. We forgot what kind of errors we did over the years. And I'm not quite sure yet, and I'm not sure how AI changes that picture, how it comes that we tend to forget the sins that we committed yesterday. Is it the quickness of our business? I'm not really sure. I'm in exchange with the German CTO, and we're both not very sure, but we see this pattern. We both see this pattern in our business. And AI, of course, speeds up things. What might that mean? I'm not sure yet. Currently, blockchain, that is not so hip anymore. Machine learning, of course, is the thing. Artificial intelligence and the hype leader a while ago, ChatGPT. What is easy to miss, and that's important, I'm not ranting here, all those technologies make sense in the correct context. It might be a very small context or a bigger context, but in the wrong context, they may lead to multiple nightmares. And as the Peter Principle or the book states, that might lead to burnout. There was no name back then, but now we know this name. So let's look and deconstruct the current hype, the large language models a bit. Everyone is talking about it. It would be better to talk about machine learning. That's, by the way, statistical procedures. Doesn't sound that sexy. Uses big data and older hype in order to build up large language models. Also sounds not that sexy. Hype cycle leader ChatGPT, more relevant for us programmers, GitHub Copilot. Spoiler, the underpinning databases are frequently non-transparent and critical from a data privacy perspective. The lawsuit that could rewrite the rules of AI copyright. It's unclear what will be happening when all those lawsuits are through. A food for thought. Artificial intelligence can be seen, at least in this context, as a marketing term. It is not intelligent, it is statistics. Without frills, a definition by Baldur Bjarnason, it would be more appropriate to word hallucinating average automat. It might lie to you. It always provides the average of the whole internet that you've taken and fully automatic. That means quickly. 3 problematic things. Let's take this a bit apart. Are LLMs relevant in the context of programming? Probably yes. Are LLMs potentially problematic in the context of programming? Quite probable. Why? At least due to 2 human cognitive biases. The reminder, cognitive biases, systemic patterns of deviation from norm or rationality in judgment. Individuals create their own subjective reality from their perception of the input. Thus, cognitive biases may sometimes lead to perceptual distortion, inaccurate judgment, illogical interpretation, or what is called irrationality. Again, irrationality. And the data, by the way, that has been consumed by the AIs is full of those irrationalities because we humans created those data. The spoiler, judgment, subjective reality, logical interpretation, and rationality are very much relevant in programming. So the problems are automation bias, anchoring bias, and anthropomorphism. What is automation bias? The science shows that a human tends to believe a machine more than the biggest expert because possibly the biggest expert is not that nice to the person or whatever. There are distortions, and you tend to think of the machine also as, that's with mathematics and stuff like that. So you tend to believe it, and it's in the data, more the machine than the biggest expert. Anchoring bias. If GitHub Copilot throws code at you, the anchor is set and your creativity, and that's your crucial resource, shrinks to the anchor, as the science shows. Your creativity room is shrunk by this anchor being set. And anthropomorphism means if there's a power socket and someone took a Sharpie and put something like a smiley in there, you see a face. There is no face there. And things happen if you see that face in us humans, because we went through evolution, many millions of years of evolution. And those 3 things are problematic if it comes to what the AI is doing with you, with your cognition. Another problem appears on the horizon. The large language models are gradually becoming more and more poisoned. What does that mean? The data generated with the lies, the hallucinations in there, are increasingly in the training data itself. And the New York Times once did a podcast, and they did a disclaimer at the beginning. We sued them. Why are they doing it? Because if you go to the stock exchange, more is better. More data means higher evaluation of your stock. Problematic. Food for thought. Do we, whoever that is in a given case, really want automats that are providing the average by definition and fast? Much more often, excellence is overheard. For all my 20 plus years, I always heard we will be the leaders in our business. We will be providing excellent solutions. Now we have a machine that provides the average for automation and automated. Who wants average code? No one. But, and that's the breaking news, the modern software engineer should better make sure to produce less and less average code. If we fully automate it, by the way, that's a different problem. I don't see that this might lead to a world where we generate code and only read this stuff, because the sheer bottleneck is understanding and not reading or generating code very quickly. Understanding. And basically, I don't see the understanding in the AI-human interaction really being improved. It only speeds up things. Even if you subtract poisoning, there's a foundational and problematic dynamic when it comes to GitHub Copilot et al. Food for thought by a young programmer. The uncomfortable truth. We are not becoming 10x developers with AI. We are becoming 10x dependent on AI, and that's the difference. And of course, it's a black box. We are not with open source here. It is, again, a black box. The providers of the AIs have the black box closed on all of us. Every time we let AI solve a problem we could have solved ourselves, we're trading long-term and deeper, in my edition, understanding for short-term productivity. We are optimizing for today's commit at the cost of tomorrow's ability. A German CTO of IBM once said, everyone knows how a normal business guy, how he gets shiny eyes. If he counts money, then he receives shiny eyes, real average business guy. But we software developers often say, yeah, bad guys. But I can tell you, I've seen technologists doing the same thing, not with money, but with playing with shiny tools. They get shiny eyes too. And we have a problem when the economics guys plus the technology guys only get their shining eyes, go into their tunnel. There's lots of space around these tunnels, and that is called software development culture. How do we shape those empty areas apart from the two tunnels, technology and money? I'm not suggesting we abandon AI tools. That ship has sailed. But we need rules of engagement, as this young programmer says. He's 27, but I think he started when he was 12 or something. My reading recommendations. The Intelligence Illusion by Baldur Bjarnason, hallucinating average automat guy. AI is creating a generation of illiterate programmers. That's the young programmer I just cited. Is it high time to take ChatGPT offline, dating back to 2023? Grady Booch, the guy who invented, he works at IBM or used to work at IBM and invented UML. He pointed to this article, and there was a diagram in there. Quite interesting. Let's take it apart. Is it safe to use ChatGPT for your task? Sorry. Start. Does it matter if the output is true? No. Safe to use ChatGPT. But people are losing their jobs who are in creative jobs, of course. If it does matter, yes. Do you have expertise to verify that the output is accurate? No, unsafe. A little short story here. I went to an after-work talk a while ago, and there was an expert guy. At least he had white streaks into his big beard. And he was saying, when I use these AI tools for new technologies that I don't know, I'm so productive. It's so very, very cool. And then he never even took a breath and said, but when I use them for a technology where I'm expert, it only creates crap. And I was like, whoa, advanced irony. How does he resolve that? Nothing, not at all. And I basically did not say anything because I tried to find out whether someone else might intervene. No one did. Shiny eyes are a big problem there, I would say. But it goes on. Are you able and willing to take full responsibility, legal, moral, etc., for missed inaccuracies? And legal and moral becomes more important by the day if you look at actors like Donald Trump or Elon Musk. legal, better, moral, also a problem that might lead to bad things. So no, it is unsafe to use it. Yes, possible to use ChatGPT, but there's a star and a catch here. But be sure to verify each output word and sentence for accuracy and common sense, whatever common sense might be in the year of 2026. I took that word out of my jargon that I use. And by the way, if you go through this diagram and go to yes, 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 all the efficiency gains are gone. All the quickness of this code generation might be gone because you really have to make sure that you really check on that. And if you use AI to generate code quickly, you really have a responsibility to check that this stuff is really working the way you think it works. We'll be coming to that later. A spoiler. I thought about this really hard, and then I came to the following conclusion. Directly relevant and critical. The amount of energy needed to refute bullshit is an order of magnitude bigger than that needed to produce it, by Alberto Brandolini, his bullshit asymmetry principle. He stated that in 2013 in connection to fake news. Why is this important here? Because LLM, hallucinated data, is an innovation that is producing bullshit of a higher order of magnitude. This is to the power, twice to the power. And therefore, the big problem here is hallucinating fake news, average automat. It has never been so cheap to generate crazy things that disturbed our democracies even years ago. That might be really deadly. Too bad. When I was in Munich last year in March, I opened up Spiegel.de, that's a German newspaper site, and I found the update on that day about exactly this fact. What was written there? ChatGPT and Perplexity AI. Russia manipulates Western chatbots for its propaganda. A Russian disinformation network manipulates Western chatbots, as researchers found out. About a third of the answers of dialogue assistants like ChatGPT contain Kremlin propaganda. The current US government does not do anything, and it even furthers the danger. What is in there? 3.6 million articles in the year of 2024 are now included in the result sets of Western AI systems and are infecting their answers with wrong claims and propaganda, the researchers are writing in their report. For this study, NewsGuard inspected 10 of the most important AI applications, including ChatGPT-4, Smart Assistant, Grok, of course, Copilot, Meta AI, Google Gemini, and Perplexity. So all the big ones. This method is called LLM grooming. The study shows that the AI chatbots are not only pick up the disinformation floating around on the internet by accident, but are influenced by targeted operation. So this is not an accident. Stop with AI. What are the challenges in software development? Micro problems. Focus on relevant details versus filtering of irrelevant details. A slider again. Adaptation to a complex and dynamic area of expertise. Whoops. If something works in a given context, it is possible that it does not work in a different context. And in the third context, it's plainly wrong. That's complex system. You do not know what the obvious solution is. Teamwork and communication with all its accompanying dynamics. And if you look from the outside on software developers and they are learning sprints and stuff, looks interesting. But what is a sprint? You look at a snail, because the sheer complexity basically leads us to being very slow as viewed from the business world, I would say. And of course, I tried to show you why this is so complex and why you can't sprint through all that. Learning agile, as from the outside world, looked upon our world. An example, what is subjectively hard? Naming things. 50% of some, it's only 4,500 people, but I found it really interesting to look at this poll. Explaining what I do or don't do. As I said earlier, you simply cannot if you're basically an expert and working with intuition. Estimating time to complete. Maybe that's guessing based on rumors. Dealing with other people. They are rational, of course, easy to handle. No, they are not. Working with someone else's code. Also a thing. You were not there. This person that wrote the code went through a process of a bloody nose, left the company, then you are there. You did not go through all his or her way of understanding that, because you don't have that context. It's tough to understand what he put in there. Implementing functionality you disagree with. At the beginning, I found this hilarious. Well, you simply cannot do that. It's your job to build the stuff that they ask you to build. No, sometimes you basically are the expert and you should raise the hand and say, sorry, I disagree because of A, B, C, and D. Writing documentation and writing tests. If only 2% say that, they are not documenting and they are not writing tests. That's tough. So naming is 50% named by the participants of that poll. If you really want to read something marvelous about refactoring, you have to read this 7 stages of naming post. There are 8 parts, introduction plus all these 7 other topics, blog posts. I won't go into the details, but there's pure gold in there. And I found this really interesting and funny. Do something evil to the database, blah, 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 blah. There was a caricature I always found really funny. It's crucial to find a good name for your class which reveals its purpose. 2 guys are thinking, by the way, that's pair programming. You don't land into your tunnel and realize at the end of the day that in the morning you took your wrong turn. Your pal says, hey, sorry, you took the wrong turn. Let's go somewhere else. You're more productive than going into dead ends alone. They are thinking together. And then he says, like, crap, I don't know where else to put in. Exactly. I found this really funny, but this is something like this here. Preload, do something evil to the database. You're in a state, defined state, and then you go on and refactor. And also interesting thing to learn, print this out, put it on your wall. And if you're working on your code base, always think in which area of those different colored things is your code base in. Really enlightening thing that you realize when you put a name to the thing that you're seeing. Simplicity, that is a challenge. If you look, I basically took 2 things, The Warning by Simon Wardley and the Dreyfus model of skill acquisition, and put it on top of something that someone brought from a conference. The following chart. How much experience a software developer has? And the code complexity. And here's the catch, perceived, subjective. Everyone reads, of course, different because he or she has a different set of knowledge. So what is there? A novice, an advanced beginner, the competent guy of the Dreyfus model here in the middle might be the danger and the expert that is somewhere here. And then when you're bloodying your nose, you realize you have to lower the complexity of your code and you refactor and you basically improve the code. And the expert, the master of the trade, realizes that the novice needs to understand his or her code when he or she leaves the company. This, of course, is expensive, but this is an investment. And I'm not sure where AI fits in this picture. If it generates code here, we have a big maintenance problem in the future. We had this at our whiteboard for years, and I realized, hey, there are 2 lines that are interesting. Here, because here you hire the novice, and here, there's the danger zone. You need to pair, you need to mentor, you need to do stuff in order for people to realize that that's the most dangerous and most expensive area of coding that you might ever find. And when I thought about it over, like a year it was there, I realized, of course, this is Keep It Simple Stupid. And I found a really catchy name for that. That is Keep It Fucking Freaky. This is massively dangerous. And the funny thing is, in German, it is not only Keep It Fucking Freaky. In German, it says also smoking dope. Kiff is smoking dope. So never forget that. And make sure that everyone in your company knows that there the real expensive stuff happens in software development business. It might be dangerous because you might get broke if your software is completely broken, or if AI created your solution like this and you need to maintain it. Good luck with it. But there are also macro problems. IT is becoming more and more make it or break it relevant. German Chancellor standing next to Obama while he was spying on the whole internet said, yeah, the internet is something like New Land's country, Neuland. And Obama must have said, no, not really, Angela, but okay. So what did Uncle Bob say in this context? The 21st century marks the first time in human history that our society has become dependent for its survival on a technology that has acquired virtually no semblance of discipline or control. Just think KIF. Software has invaded every facet of modern life, from connecting us in a world-spanning network to dividing us socially and politically. Now, very powerful AIs are also on the top of this mix. This is dating back to 2021. Labor shortage is not only foreseeable, as said in 2021, but effectively here, while labor demand is increasing steeply. Everyone wants solutions. Every 5 years, the number of programmers in the world doubles. The implications of that fact are staggering. If the number of programmers in the world doubles every 5 years, it means that half the programmers in the world have less than 5 years experience. And realistically, after 5 years, you don't know enough in order to be the expert who's really well versed in his business or her business. And this will always be true so long as the doubling rate continues. This leaves the programming industry in the precarious position of perpetual inexperience. And it was like an epiphany to me, because if this is only half true, it means that the average knowledge in the industry is effectively decreasing. Now AI has entered the picture, but now it's decreasing again because no more junior developers. That is the same problem, only with a different world facing this problem, because AI is in that world now. Simultaneously, the software landscape is becoming more and more complex and is increasing massively in size. And I can assure you, Mr. Putin says attack surface when we have the software everywhere. Without software, our society does not function. Software has become the most important component in the infrastructure of our civilization. Society does not understand this yet. We programmers don't really understand it yet either. But the realization is dawning that the fragile foundation of public trust is at risk. And reading a bit on the topic of trust, you will learn that a modern society can only function if you have trust in the system. Food for thought. Social media-induced velocity is diametrically incompatible with the velocity of a democracy. Democracy is about finding a common ground between different persons. And if no one is lucky, you have found a good compromise. If everyone is expecting social media velocity, we have a massive problem in our democratic systems, because you won't fix it in this quick speed. AI, of course, is now becoming a problem for career starters. Simple writing tasks in the past, often taken over by junior developers, are not available to them anymore. Exactly with those tasks, junior developers were building up their experience. That made it possible for them to become good senior developers later. If this chance is not available to them anymore, you are plainly cutting the branch on which the industry sits. Because old programmers will be leaving. No new programmers means who the hell will be the new advanced programmer, the master of his trade? Among US graduates aged 22 to 27, the computer science and computer technology graduates have one of the highest unemployment quotas, with 6.1 and 7.5%. This is more than twice as high, buckle up, as the quota for graduates of biology and art history, for which the quota is only 3%, dating back to February. And I add in case AI-based coding proves as a wrong way in the medium term, this hype-driven approach will very likely aggravate the labor shortage. Because if you promise a junior who studied that stuff and he will have a nice salary, and then you say, oh, sorry, no job, they won't be coming back when we need them. Recommended reading. Thoughts on AI and Software Development by Uwe Friedrichsen, German CTO, really interesting. And all the posts that he wrote after this 4-part series are also very interesting. As I said earlier, this we are our own self-worst enemies. That's the latest post dating back to last week. So what do I want to say? We are coming to the close. The story so far by those 21 years. 2 statements relating to technical stuff. Of course, you said, hey, here's a coder telling you something about software development. I used to be a coder, and I send you something about technical stuff. Those are the tools. With great power comes great responsibility. That's, of course, Spider-Man. And it is exactly like that. Normally, when I do this on conferences, I have my Spider-Man socks on, and I show it to you. Because keep your tool as stupid as necessary, never as clever as possible. And AI is clearly not very stupid. It is not intelligent, but it's also a very complex, non-deterministic tool. And think about it. Humans are non-deterministic, and now we have a tool that is inherently non-deterministic. You're adding on top of that. Why is this important? December 2021, CraftConf again? No, later. 3 logging APIs for the Elven Kings under the sky. 7 for the Dwarf Lords in their Halls of Stone. There was this Log4j bug. And like for 4 hours, 4 hours? No, that would be nice. 4 weeks, our whole business grinded more or less to a halt because everyone was trying to fix this bug. Why? Because in Log4j, there was some LDAP stuff being put in there. Was it a good idea to put something like that in there? Possibly not. June 2021, Craft Conference, here it is. Developers are drawn to complexity like moth to a flame, frequently with the same result. We burn our wings. Because if you're relaxed and you're building your solution with the maximum capacity of your brain, by definition, if your phone rings, and you're in the cloud, of course, your phone rings at 2 a.m. and you're stressed out and the boss calls on the second phone and your system, your imagination and your stressors, basically stressors push your imagination away, you simply have no chance to understand what you wrote in complete relaxed state with the maximum capacity of your brain. Impossible. And the AI can't help you either. April 2022, Twitter. Cleverness of code is proportional to the confusion it creates. Simplicity. Master creates a simple solution that a rookie understands, if there's a rookie left. A thought dating back to 2018. Perhaps every software developing company needs a CSO, a Chief Skepticism Officer, full stop. Professional software development is significantly more than just writing code. This is the brain dump by Don Gray and Andy Hunt after 25 years after the Agile Manifesto. And here, the blue things, that's what we understand when we think about coding. Coding, technical practices, here, test-driven development, doing XP or Scrum. By the way, XP is much better. Work models, metaphors. But software development is not only about the blue parts. It is learning, it is teams, it is people, understanding people, motivation, mastery of your trade, teams, lift off their purpose, alignment, context, social facets. We are human beings. We always build cultures, psychological safety. If you're stressed out, your imagination is out of the door. Change. How do you manage change? How do you manage a product? How does your organization work? Is it hierarchical, fractal? How's your reward structure impacting all that stuff? This is professional software development. 25 years after the Agile Manifesto. Technology does not solve problems. Humans do. And a spoiler, at least until now, AI, I'm looking at you, and I'm quite skeptical that we can automate what I just showed you. We might do something with the coding parts and have a sparring partner with an AI playing around ideas. But if you rely for automation of software development with such a statistical, non-deterministic tool, which is not intelligent, I have my doubts. Never forget, the nature of software may change towards the nature of hardware if you do not schedule planned maintenance for business people that's a budget to mitigate that dangerous dynamic. A software's architectural foundation resembles hardware if you're outlining the costs of serious innovation. If you have massive accidental complexity because you took the wrong tool, possibly you automated everything with AI, you have a big problem. Technology does not solve problems, humans do. Never forget part 2, the fundamental assumption of every known labeled, branded, and marketed method. Your team is healthy, the humans in the mix. You have a team that is performing really good, because if that's not the case, something like this happens. This is German, I'll translate. There's no more fun here, no motivation, too much to do. All people are making a fuss. Everywhere there we are fighting. Everything is stupid. And then your best colleague says to you, I see you, I love you. In Germany, there's a smaller word than love. That is called Lieb. That's a small version of it. I see you, I feel you, I love you. And then you say, thank you. And back then, when I was very frustrated, my best colleague said something like that, and he said, Alex, I've seen your thoughts on modern software development talk like 3 times, 4 times, whatever, 3 times, I guess it was. And he said, I'll play boss now. Where's the constructive solution in this talk? And that never left me. And 2 years or 1.5 years ago, I sat down when I bootstrapped my consulting business and pinned down what I learned from those 21 years in order to provide you with solutions for modern software development. Important, those are approximations because we have a complex field here. I can't tell you 1, 2, 3, check, 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 solution. No, what do I find important for finding solutions for your custom problem called software development or challenge or whatever you might call it? What did I do there? I tried to find an answer to the following core question. How can we nudge the complex system of software development into directions which do not repeatedly lead us into dead ends? And I've seen many code bases also called dead ends. And if you put code production with AI on steroids, this dead end might be found earlier, which might be good, but it's a dead end nonetheless if you're basically speeding up that process with the wrong solution matrix or whatever. So what did I do? It's a 4-part solution. Effectively managing complexity, and that's the code side of it. Effectively managing cognitive load, that is what is basically the thing that you have to optimize, because if you have no clear cognition, you cannot manage the complexity, stresses in the system and stuff like that. Effectively performing human interactions. Those are the teams I was talking about. Learning how we as humans tick. Understand yourself. From when you understand yourself, you can perform in a team. You have a good working cognition on top, and you can manage the complexity. Because if you don't know how you tick, you might run into burnout problems in your teams, in your individuals. And the worst thing would be burnout, someone drops out, that one comes back, next one drops out. That was like the massive problem for any organization. The core motivation, I tried to pin that down for Craft Conference last year, and I thought, oh, that will be tough. But it took me 10 minutes. In times like these, it is not primarily about your attention-grabbing 5 minutes of fame or your financial mega glory, but more important is it that we are moving constructively forward. And the important thing is together, because we can't solve software development alone. The problems are way too big. And I think by now I have something like a gut feeling that AI might also not fix this. There is no silver bullet. And it might be a thing that only shows you clearer whether you're really good, then you will be better. Or when you're average or bad, you might run more quickly into the wrong direction. So if this sounds interesting to you, connect with me on LinkedIn or go to my homepage and read how my offering looks. And I would say, thank you for your attention. If I would have spent more time thinking, I would have talked less. Funny thing is, recently someone said in the break, normally I do a break when I'm doing the long talk, this person said, Alex, you should end with, if I would have spent more time thinking. And in fact, I really did that. And he said, you should do that. So this is relevant in programming too. And the almost famous last words, the programmer's credo, we do these things not because they are easy, but because we thought they were going to be easy. I really like that one. And my favorite thing is, this library is the thing where you can lock me away, unexplained phenomena, software programming. And I thank you very much. You can find me on the internet. Here you see a picture of my homepage. I named it Rethinking Software Development. And Italian person said, basta, finito, because I talk way much. And I stop now. Thanks.
But it was very interesting. So thank you very much. Actually, that's perfectly relevant from, I think, any perspective, not just developers, I think. I mean, yeah, I really like the simplicity side, actually, and the thoughts around that. Like, I think it tells that true expertise is partly about knowing what not to build, right? Yep. So I'm constantly thinking about that, actually.
By the way, I could add one thing. I can show you on my homepage where you find the links. I promised you to show. If you go to the homepage, you will find this as the starting page. Here you find the description of what I offer, but here you see sources and slides. You click there and you click on thoughts on modern software development, and you see all the slides with all the links on each slide. So it's the whole presentation there with all the things that you might research on. And on top of that, if you're curious what I read over the years, here's a reading list: IT and software development, then business stuff, and I've tried to find a word out of the box. So everything that does not clearly fit into software development or business is in this third part of that list. Yeah. And here you can find me on LinkedIn and Mastodon, and even a YouTube channel. There are recordings of this talk, and this one might be added there, I would say.
Cool. Thanks. Yeah. And also this recording will be available on the virtual DDD knowledge base, actually, where everything else is available already. I guess it needs a little bit of processing, but then it will be there. Yeah. So any questions, actually, from anyone? I didn't see anything in the chat, but I just wanted to give the option.
Before we go to the question part, one addition here. You see more thoughts-related sources. I did many talks last year, and all the discussions that we had are basically here about where you find stuff, interesting stuff on Mastodon, stuff related to development culture that we discussed, software development in general. Also, Uwe Friedrichsen here, the CTO I mentioned a few times, agility, artificial intelligence, technological disruption, learning, work culture and organizational development, business, MISC, TOOTS, funny things down there. Yeah.
Cool.
But I stopped now. I said I stopped talking. So questions.
You shouldn't.
Please.
Actually, I just, during your talk, when you first mentioned Uwe, I actually checked whether he is going to be a speaker again at Craft this year, but unfortunately not. But he used to be, actually, and hopefully he will also come back one time. But yeah, definitely check it out. I would encourage everyone to.
I will add here in the blog, on this page, I'll add the additional links, Uwe's talk, and also Uwe's blog post, Plus, he did a talk in Germany recently about AI. 7 problematic, I can't remember how this exactly spelled, 7 things about AI that might backfire, something like that.
Oh.
Yeah. I'll
Okay.
add it also in there on that page. So if you go there, it will be added down here. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. But I'm talking again. Questions, please.
Anyone has any questions?
We can also stop the recording if you don't want to go on YouTube with your questions.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So I can actually stop the recording. But for the record, thanks for everyone, and thanks especially to you, Alex. And see you next time. So I'm stopping the recording.